So over the last couple of weeks, we've been in a series where we have just been talking about our teams here at Radiant Life Church, talking about how we can be together involved to do what God has called us to do and to be, as a church, who God has called us to be. But the last few weeks, we've also had an opportunity to reach out actively. And so I want to give a couple of reports from some things that have taken place over the last few weeks. A few weeks ago, we had Go Ye. And Go Ye is always a great time. If you missed it, we have buckets all the way around the room, and we get to give literally 160 different pieces of money for the nations and the nation groups. And this year, we had over $21,000 that you gave to go into all the world. And that is amazing. Give yourselves a hand. That is awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor Dennis, for setting that up every year. And $21,000 to reach people for Jesus. I love that offering because it's the world. All of it goes out into the world. We want to be sure today there are group pictures in the foyer if your kids were in the group pictures or the other group pictures that were taken, as well as family pictures. You can pick those up at the table right out front here on the other side of the fountain. And just again, thank you. And thank you, Pastor Dennis, for doing that every year. And if you didn't know, that's a great opportunity to have free family pictures every year with Pastor Dennis. So thank you. Also this morning, we had our pancake breakfast the men put on for the church, and they made over $600 this morning that's going to go to City Reach Hilltop. Yes, so thank you men for doing it, and thank you for all of you that ate it this morning. We're going to start doing that more often, and so we'll have different opportunities, but this morning, $600 for City Reach Hilltop, the church that we support actively. And in your bulletin, there's a whole bunch about City Reach Hilltop and ministry opportunities coming up here in the fall or right before winter, and just encourage you to jump aboard with what is happening there. The other one that I didn't fully talk through yet is we had our trunk or treat a few weeks ago, and it was amazing. We had over 150 guests with us in service for the service time, and then we had a whole bunch more than that joined us at the end. We moved inside in the gym, which it was great having a gym, because otherwise it would have been wet and cold outside, and it was a special time. To me, there's nothing better than when you can get 150 people that aren't active church attenders to come to church, right? I mean, it's awesome. The room was just a great crowd, and so I thank you for being a part of those special days. The next one that's going to be similar like that is Palm Sunday, when we do our Easter egg hunt, and we're believing for a crowd like last year that just fills the place, and we're going to need all of your help. So you can begin to mentally plan now for Palm Sunday. Don't go on vacation. Be here. Help us, because we need lots of people. But we thank you for being a part of that special Sunday trunk or treat. Go Ye, the pancake breakfast this morning, that God is moving, and we get to be a part in these little opportunities and great things. So none of you can see this. You're going to have to get your own. But this picture of all of your children is awesome. It is super great, and so be sure, parents, you don't want to miss that. Pick one of those up, and we look forward to it. Well, this morning we're going to talk about the third segment of our We Are Carriers sermon series. We're going to talk about culture carriers. When I say this, you might be like, what does that even mean? This is the people at Radiant Life Church that they carry the culture of what we do. They carry who we are. They make happen what is supposed to happen. They're working, a bunch of them right now on the other side of that wall in kids ministry, because that's pouring into the next generation of kids, culture carriers. And I love this thought of how many of you are culture carriers here at Radiant Life. Through prayer, through worship, through children's ministries, through greeting, through usherings, making it possible for one more person to come to know Jesus. Now, here in a little bit, we're going to jump into a story, but a few years ago, I guess a year ago, I was the youth pastor here, and several years ago, I had this awesome idea, I thought, at the time at least, but I had this great idea. We were going to do something fun, because I wanted a lot of people to show up for a youth event, I think an all-nighter, and so we decided that in the chapel in the other building, we were going to literally make a pool in the chapel. Now you might say, how would you make a pool in a chapel? That's a great question. I'm going to tell you. So we put this massive tarp buy tarp, just like a visqueen tarp. Probably not the best choice, but we put that baby in there, laid it out like the clear, actually just the clear like tarp stuff, very thin. So we put that out over the whole entire main space of the chapel with 2x4s or other things on the outside so that then you could hold the water up inside of the tarp, right? So we filled this thing. It was about 2.5 inches deep all across the chapel. And then we had them, like, you had to get in the water. It was kind of jumping in with Jesus. It was, hopefully, some of these they remember seriously because their faces are like, it was awesome. So they had to get into the water when they felt God, had spoke to them or whatever that part was. But what I remember most is after that, we then played games on the tarp pool thing in the chapel. Now, later we're going to talk about a guy who he kind of put his life on the line, and he did some crazy things for Jesus. I don't know if this was for Jesus, but this was definitely crazy. Because as there were relays going back and forth, we decided it would be a good idea to use metal tubs that you would like slide on, that you could use these metal tubs. But the problem is that if you flip that metal tub over, or if you tilted it, then the metal may or may not have, that's rude back there laughing at me. All of a sudden, the metal tub goes into the visqueen, and all of a sudden there is a pond of water. There's an absolute pond that is not in the visqueen anymore. Now it is on the floor and growing bigger by the second, right? Unbelievable moment in my life. I thought that might have been my last day as youth pastor or pastor here at Radiant Life Church, as the chapel is filling with water. Kyle is back there. He was there. He quickly started getting all the sound equipment up off the ground so we didn't blow up everything or electrocute ourselves. That could have been a possibility as well. It was great. All of your children somehow survived me being youth pastor. So that's a good news. But this was one of those moments where I believe we made a whole lot of video, or memories. There we go. We should have made more videos because that would have been pretty great videos. But we made great memories. We got to experience really fun time. And then we got to work really, really, really hard to try not to destroy the chapel, to try to get the chapel back to what it was before we put 2 inches of water in the entirety of the chapel, basically, especially somehow the sound booth area. All the water gushed into the sound booth. It must have been lower there. Whew. Then, while we're on the story, when you then have a lot of water still on this tarp, and then you've got to get all that water out a little door, like a side door, and you have to try to work all that water to this corner without, it was a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible idea. But we made it. We made it happen. And I didn't get fired. By Monday, it was dry somehow. The Lord was good. No one even knew. And maybe in your ministry life, it's kind of like one of those things when your kids start telling you stories weeks and months later. I didn't tell my dad about it until nothing was broke or ruined. I kind of held that to myself for a little bit, and then we, kind of shared that. In fact, some of you, parents even, with kids that might have been there, this could be your first time hearing of it. I don't know, because I definitely did not publicize that while I was youth pastor. But it was a good time. It was a good time. And I don't even know if I can continue on to preach after that. I mean, just the memories, so vivid. But when we think of ministry and we think of life, I think of culture carriers as people who jump in and they get an idea and they give it a whirl. Hopefully using slightly more wisdom than I might have used that day. But where people jump in, they get a part, they say, I'm going to be a part of all of the different things. I'm going to be a part of the different moments of Radiant Life. I'm going to be a part of kids ministries or of the worship team. I'm going to give everything I have to try to figure out how, in my own way, in my own area, I'm going to put a pond in the chapel, even if it's a bad idea. I'm going to do it. We're going to figure it out. I feel like culture carriers decide, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see what God might do in the crazy things and ideas that he gives us. And today, as we talk through this thought of culture carrier, as we talk through what this looks like, we're going to look in Philippians, and we're going to talk about a guy named Epaphroditus. I feel like Epaphroditus might be someone who would put Visqueen out in a room, or at least he would be someone who'd go to his mentor's house, and he would clean for him, he would take care of him, he'd cook him food, he'd do everything he could to see, in this case, Paul and his life be the best that it can be. Epaphroditus is a man that we're going to learn about, and maybe a bunch of you might have been in church your whole life, and you might not remember that name, or you might say, I've heard it once, but I have no clue what Epaphroditus did or who he is. And I love that because there's so many people in the church who you might say, no one knows what I do, and some of you love that. You never want me to mention your name. You're like, just talk about somebody else. But there's people like Epaphroditus in the Bible where you might not even know what they do. Some of you, I could call you out, and I won't because I know you wouldn't like it. But you are people that are culture carriers for what Radiant Life does. In the backgrounds, doing the things when no one else sees, when no one else even knows what you're doing. They just know that you come in and bushes are cut, or things are prepared, or there's signs on the women's ministry table, or all of the different things that people do. The things on the stage, there's people here that, I think Pastor Matt, I think he carries the culture of Radiant Life Church. He pushes it forward. And there's people that nobody else in the room would even know their name. And they push forward what God is doing. So as we go through this, as we close this series out, I encourage you, if it's a flashy thing you do, or if it's not at all flashy, are we where God would have us to be, doing what God would have us to do? Are we taking him up on being the best follower of Jesus that we can be? And if we are, I encourage you, keep it going. Let's be culture carriers. And if this morning you say, you know what, I feel I'm going to be challenged. Already you know you're going to be challenged. I encourage you, will you let God speak to your heart? Will you let God show you, how can I kind of ratchet up what I'm doing for Jesus? How can I ratchet up what he wants to speak and how he wants to move? This week I had a guy that he sent me an email. I haven't even responded yet. But saying, hey, you know a lot about me, but you didn't know all of this. A whole bunch of crazy stuff of training of what God was doing. He says, I want to get plugged into a greater level. I want to begin using some of that God has put in me. And that's what I believe today God wants to do in every single one of us. Whatever it looks like to you, what is it that needs to be released that God can use you in a powerful way to reach and to touch someone around you? So when we look here and we look at Philippians, if everybody would maybe head there if you would like to, or it'll be on the screen. But Philippian church was started by Paul, Silas, Timothy, and Luke during Paul's second missionary journey. I love this church because it was a church made up of Gentiles, almost entirely or mostly Gentiles. It was also a church where we can see in different places throughout the Bible that Lydia, who was the first convert, was someone who was probably rich, as she was a dealer in purple and a cloth from Asia. She was probably a wealthy person. There's a slave girl who found Jesus, and she was a Greek and of the lowest class, considered a property of someone else. There was a jailer who was a Roman citizen who had been middle class. This church shows in just a few short chapters in the Bible that it doesn't matter if we're poor, if we're rich, if we've got a lot, if people follow us, or if we are told what to do. Thankfully, not like this. But if we feel like I just do my thing, God uses every single type of person, needs every single person to step up and to do what God is doing. To just follow him, to go after him with everything. Paul, he considered the Philippians friends. He starts his letter not by talking about his apostleship or who he is, but just talks about the fellowship he wants to have and how he's a servant of Christ along with them. This church was very generous in pouring out to Paul and supplying for Paul. In fact, it may be that he was one of the only church that faithfully, financially supported Paul in his ministry. So all of a sudden, you get to a place where Paul had not heard from them in a long time. The church wanted to be a blessing to Paul. Paul is in prison. He's in Rome. He's 800 miles away from where the church in Philippi is. And so the church in Philippi prays, and they figure out what to do, and they decide, you know what, we're going to send an offering, and we're going to send Epaphroditus to take that. And not only to give an offering, but to give the offering and then to just take care of Paul, to do the little things of life that he might need. So we made an 800-mile winding journey from Philippi to Rome. It would have taken about 6 weeks across Europe, across the Adriatic Sea, then across Italy to Rome, and an amazing voyage and journey. 6 weeks to get to Paul, to be able to carry out the mission that God had given him through the church in Philippi. Now, when he might have got to Paul, you could just imagine Paul, he's in a rented house. He was probably chained to at least one, if not two, imperial guards as he's under house arrest for being a Christian and for just believing what he believed. And there were about 1,000 members of the imperial guard. Every 4 to 6 hours, a different one or two would come by, and there may have been a rotation. But all of a sudden, you could see he just had a captive audience. How great would it be, Bev Stahl, if every day someone was chained to you and you just got to talk about Jesus all day, right? That's what you do anyways if you're around you. So they would be stuck, and forever you would just speak Jesus, 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 talk about who he is. It would be an amazing opportunity. And that's what Paul had, sitting in his house that was rented, taking care of and pouring into the imperial guards who were around him. Epaphroditus would have shown up, and if I'm the imperial guard, I would be thinking, why is this guy coming, giving you an offering, now just taking care of you, taking care of the little needs that you have in your life? Why would he even choose to do that? It's kind of amazing. But Epaphroditus was doing what God had called him to do, being used in his service. And all of a sudden, I think we can see the importance and the love that Paul had for Epaphroditus. In Philippians 2:25 through 30. It says, I have thought it necessary to send you Epaphroditus, my brother and fellow worker and fellow soldier, and your messenger and minister to my need. For he has been longing for you and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill, near to death, but God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I am the more eager to send him, therefore, that you may rejoice in seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy, and honor such men. For he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me. So Epaphroditus, he's sent from Philippi to Rome to be with Paul. He takes care of his need. Somehow, in the middle of this, Epaphroditus gets sick to the point of almost dying. The church hears about it. They're worried. There's concern all the way around. Our messenger, is he going to be okay? And then Paul, I love, he cares so much, is so worried that the church is going to be worried, so he's worried. Does anybody else maybe think like Paul? Does your worry compound upon worry? I think that's what it says here. So the Bible, God, we're told not to worry, but it looks like Paul was a human like us and still working through those things. But Epaphroditus is there to make a difference. He was dedicated. This morning, I want to talk about 3 quick areas where culture carriers and what they are. And the first is culture carriers are friends. It says, I have thought it necessary to send you Epaphroditus, my brother, fellow worker, fellow soldier, and your messenger and minister to my need. He was a brother. There's a relationship that was there, something that was special, not just a person doing some work, but his brother. A worker, there's a job that he was sent to do, and he did it well. He was a friend. He cared. He loved. He poured out what he had as a worker. It says soldier. They begin to compound upon themselves, and there's a battle to be fought. There's something that he was called to do and fight for, and he did. He followed Jesus. He did what he needed to do on behalf of his church to bless Paul. He was the messenger. There's something that he had to convey. There was a truth. You begin to see in this that his relationship with Paul was serious. It was real. It was powerful. And I believe that culture carriers are friends. Culture carriers use all of those things to minister to the people around them. That every one of us, our goal, I pray, your goal in life is to be a friend to the world around you. It's to be a friend to the people you're serving. It's to be a friend when you're serving at church. It's to be a friend to the people there. But it's to minister and share in the gospel, who he is. I believe that culture carriers do life with their Radiant family. I believe that culture carriers can't be a culture carrier and just show up on a Sunday morning. And I would encourage you, if you are not actively a part in a friendship way at Radiant Life Church, if you don't have people you come and you just can't wait to see on Sunday morning because you know you're going to get to talk to them, you know you're going to get to be encouraged by them, you know that they're going to pour into you, that before you leave, they're going to try to chase you down and be sure that they get to talk to you. I encourage you, let God take you to a place where you do life with your family here, where you do more than just show up. Culture carriers are friends, but culture carriers are also leaders. For he has been longing for you all and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill, near to death, but God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. And the thing that I see here is that when you're a friend with someone, when you step into a place of leadership, I believe that something very important happens. And that's that we go from even just being friends and just caring a little bit, but when you lead someone, I think there's another level to our care and to our love. There's a longing that he had. He was distressed for his people. In fact, he suffered for them. He did whatever it took. And I believe that in the church world, there's a question of, Lord, am I going to step up no matter what the cost would be? Am I going to step up no matter how much work I have to put in? Am I going to step up no matter, even if it takes, we'll call it suffering for Jesus? If I have to challenge myself, if I have to let go of even sometimes my own desires and my own wants to say, Lord, I'm going to please you. I'm going to honor you. I believe culture carriers are leaders. Culture carriers take action for their Radiant family. Culture carriers step out of what would be the norm and step into who God is and what he has for them. Culture carriers. Today, I believe that God is calling each of us, saying, who is following you? Who's right behind you? Who are you leading? There's so many opportunities to be a part where someone can look up to you and follow behind you, where someone can step into exactly where to follow you, to know what you're doing and to see and experience God. Culture carriers are leaders. When I think of people in this room today that have been leaders throughout my entire life getting to grow up here, I could point at multiple different people. But I love the leaders that they may have been my babysitter when I was a kid and now they're leading girls' ministries. Or they may have been my friends' parents and now they're leading Royal Rangers. That they've been a part of life here. And they've said, I don't care what the sacrifice is. I'm going to go all in. I don't care what it takes time-wise. I'm going to do it. I don't care what it looks like. I'm going to go after the things that God has for me and the things that God has for those that get to follow me. This morning when I think, Robert, you put on the pancake breakfast. That was your mastermind. You're like, this is exciting. In fact, if you want somebody that is a bulldog that goes and gets it done, that's that guy right there. I think he asked me like 12 times, can we do this? Can we do this? And then the kitchen got done. He's like, now we can do it. Let's do it. And said, I'm going to put together a team. I'm going to make food. I'm going to get people there. People that say, I'm going to do something. And this morning, Robert, you and your team raised, $600 that's going to bless City Reach Hilltop. It's all of us doing what we can do to lead somebody behind us, to say, I'm going to take action for my family. I'm going to take action for my Radiant family and see what God will do. That's what it's all about. Culture carriers here are friends. Culture carriers here are leaders. And the third is culture carriers are servants. It says, I am the more eager to send him, therefore, that you may rejoice at seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy and honor such men, for he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me. And they said, the church couldn't do it. They couldn't all go. Epaphroditus was called. He was sent to go and to make a difference. And because of what he did, Paul said, it's time to rejoice. It's time to recognize him. What he has done and who he is so powerful. Let him be recognized because he served. And I believe that Epaphroditus, he didn't only get it in doing the hard work. But even before that, he had a conception of service. He decided in his mind what that was going to look like. He decided when he showed up to Paul, it didn't matter what he was going to have to do. He decided, you know what? I'm going to go, and if I have to clean his bathroom, and I've got to clean his house, and I've got to get him food, and I've got to make some food, whatever it looks like, whatever he was going to do, he went to make a difference. And I believe in our life as culture carriers, to raise the bar, we have to say, Jesus, would you help me to want to serve above anything else? I want to hang out with my friends, and I want to be a leader. But Lord, I also simply want to say, God, what would you have for me? How can I serve? How can I reach down and maybe help someone that they can't do it on their own? How can I serve and make a difference with the least of these? How can I pour my love that you've given me out to people that I couldn't do it without you? How can I serve those around me? I believe that today God is calling every single one of us to step into who he is, to step into what he has for us, to step into the things that only he can pull out of us as we take a step towards him. At the beginning, we played the little video. It's going to go out on Facebook as well. But if you'd say, you know what, I'm not actively a part, or maybe God's been laying something on your heart that you believe that he wants you to lead or wants you to step up in, today, I believe God is calling and challenging each one of us. Luis and Nadinas, you guys this morning, the first time up on worship team, we thank you for being a part, for jumping in, saying, we love to sing, we love to be a part. And this morning, that step was taken. And for each one of us, what might be a step that God would have us take? When I think of Radiant Life Church, I think of the different opportunities that we have. There's so many different areas that God, he wants to use you. He wants to step in and pour into you. But I encourage you today that we are in need of people who say, I want to go work with the young people. I want to go work into the tree house. Then you get to go play around with them, lead them, have fun, jump around, do fun stuff, as well as sometimes very, very light discipline. But where we get to be a part of pouring into them, of letting God use you to lead and to pull others behind you. I encourage you that maybe God would ask some of you. We could use 20 of you or so to say, I'm going to jump in to children's ministry. Maybe you said, I've done children's ministry in the past and I told God I would never do it again because I've been there and done that. I'd encourage you, maybe God would even stretch you and say, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to step into what that looks like. Maybe for you, you'd say, man, last week you talked about there being a cleaning team, there being an outdoor team, there being teams where you can come on your own schedule, an office team. And we had some people this week who signed up to say, I want to take care of the bathrooms. I want to take care and come and volunteer. And whatever your role is, I believe we are all culture carriers when we come together, when we do what God has called us to do, and we step into him in a greater way. So right now, I want to just recognize two individuals, or two groups, two couples today, that I believe when we look at Radiant Life Church, it would not be what it is without these two couples. This church would not look like it does. They've been faithful, they've been consistent, they've stepped into all that God has for them time and time and time again, and they both lead, and they're an active part of who we are. So if I could have Jason and Michelle Hammett, if you guys would come up here, and Nancy and Binga Sofawara, if you guys would come up here. We just want to celebrate you two as our culture carriers of the year. Woo! You guys are awesome. We are so excited about what God is doing in you guys. So come on over here while they're making their way up here. Jason and Michelle, They are our junior Bible quiz coordinators. Got to stop for the picture. So what that means is yesterday we were here getting ready all the lights. That means that Jason comes by, brings his daughters, and sets up the rooms, gets the tables ready, gets the boxes all ready. So when they show up on Sunday morning, they're ready to go. And these two coordinate every single state or the meets that are here 4 times a year. They coordinate those. They put them together. They do so much work helping our director that would be over them. If you weren't here, I don't know what our director would do because you make it happen. They pour into Treehouse. They pour into so many different areas of Radiant Life Church. And I just want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you from all of us. Thank you for loving our kids. And not only when it's fun and when it's easy and when it's in front of people. I don't know if that's your favorite thing anyways, but you do it every single week consistently. It's amazing. And it brings joy to my heart to know that when I'm at home some Saturday, I know you come and I know you set it up. I know you get it ready so that my kids, so that their kids can study the Word of God. There's nothing better that you could do than that you too could do than to pour your love into those kids. And so thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We love you, man. Thank you, Michelle. And then over here, come on over. Nancy and Bingo, we love you guys. Nancy, we say, is like our utility kids ministry player. Come right up here. Yes, we'll get a picture with you guys. Awesome. I wasn't sure if he was going to quit. But you, too, pour your spirit into our kids, into our teens. I mention JBQ. You both have been part of our teen Bible quiz or junior Bible quiz. You love the Word of God. And Bingo, I haven't got to hear you pray as much as your wife, but Nancy, you can straight up pray. And you intercede for the lost. You intercede for our world. And I thank you for pouring just the love of Jesus into our kids. Junior Treehouse is our younger age, and she so faithfully, a couple times a month, leads those younger kids so they can have an experience that is more geared towards their age. And those are things that most of us would never see. We might just think you're not at church on a Sunday morning, but you're faithfully doing what God has called you to do. Bingo is a big part of Teen Bible Quiz and just stepping all of the different areas that God uses you as and as a couple. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a culture carrier that is pushing forward what God is doing here, and it's going to be for the lives of these kids that you pour into, because they're never going to forget. The Word will always be in their heart. So I just want to say thank you, both of you, for your sacrifice, for your service, and for loving Radiant Life, but loving the people of Radiant Life, and loving Jesus. Love you guys. Thank you. Okay, we got to get a full group picture, because that's what we did the last 2 weeks. Come on over here. These two, if we had about 40 or 50 couples just like this, woo, our children's ministry, Pastor Sarah would not know what to do, like not at all. But love it. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. One more big round of applause. Pastor Matt and the team, if you guys want to come back up here. We're going to take the last, what do we have? 15 minutes, 15 minutes. And we're going to just open our hearts maybe to what God would speak. Pastor Rachel, if you could go grab those papers and just put some at the altar. We have paper pieces. If you weren't here last week and you didn't get the list of all the ministries of the church, I encourage you, you can either go online to Radiant.Family /Team Life. You could come to the front. Maybe even find a spot. Maybe we need to pray and say, God, what would you speak to my heart? Some of you, I pray that this morning you are affirmed in what you're doing. You have been serving. You've been pouring your heart out. And I couldn't say thank you enough. My kids couldn't say thank you enough. I believe Jesus today couldn't thank you enough. If I was writing a letter, I would say to rejoice with you. Recognize them, regard them highly because of what you do, because of who you are. But if today you'd say, you know what, I feel God is calling me, maybe for the first time in my life of being a part of Radiant Life Church, for the first time, I think God is calling me to get involved. I think he's calling me to join a team, to become a part of team life. I think he's calling me maybe to be in the children's ministry department, or maybe to be a greeter, or to clean a bathroom on the team, or to sweep floors, or to mow the grass, or to cut bushes, or to pull weeds, or to greet people at the door with the biggest smile, the warmest smile. And when people come in the doors, they're like, I love being at Radiant Life Church because I just get happy when I'm here. Or cafe, there's so many areas. Our Royal Rangers and Girls Ministries, maybe you say, you know what? I want to step up on Wednesday night. I want to come and make it a habit of my life to pour into and to mentor students. There's nothing greater. We mentioned TBQ and JBQ, Treehouse, and maybe today you say, I'm going to jump aboard. But I want to ask you, parents, if you are active, like your kids are active in kids' church, can I ask a crazy thing? We don't make people. Some churches actually, all the kids, their parents have to serve. We don't do that. But would you ask the Lord, maybe I should do that? Would you consider jumping in one time a month to join in, to be a part of your kids' lives in that, but also to bless all the other kids? I mentioned we could use 15 or 20 or 25 even adults, and then students right over there. This is for you too. I want to be sure. There's a lot of you this morning. If all of you volunteered in kids' church, Pastor Sarah would love you. She already does love you, but she'd love you even more. And this morning, what would God challenge you to do? Culture carriers do life with the Radiant family. They spend time together. Culture carriers take action for their Radiant family. They do what God has called them, and culture carriers serve with their Radiant family. So right now, Pastor Matt, he's just going to lead a song. And in your own spot, in your own heart, would you just ask the Lord, am I doing what I should be doing? Do I need to make a change? Maybe do I need to take a step into ministry that I've never been in before? Let God speak. And then there's papers at the front. You can go online, Radiant.Family /team life. And let's get plugged in to what God's doing. I feel so honored to serve with you, to be a part of different ministries, and to watch you guys serve and proclaim the message of the gospel so that one more person can come to know Jesus. Our vision: changing lives, developing leaders, sharing the love of Jesus everywhere. That is what we are about. That's what everything we do is about. So Lord, right now, I thank you for this group of amazing leaders and volunteers and people that call Radiant Life their home. And Lord, I pray that in this moment, Lord, you would confirm within us, Lord, maybe our ministry positions, or maybe, Lord, you would challenge us. Or maybe right now, would you speak to our hearts? Maybe would you even give us boldness? Maybe we've been concerned or worried that we couldn't do it, or that we wouldn't do it good enough, or whatever those things might be, doubts. Lord, would you confirm in our heart, Lord, that when you call, you'll help us. When you call, you'll help us to accomplish what it is that you want us to accomplish. And Lord, especially when it comes to children's ministries, God, would you today challenge us to take that step, to love our children, to pour into our children, to mentor our children, so they can be all that you've called them to be as we lead them to you. So right now, as we just listen for your voice, would you speak clearly, God? As we worship, Lord, would you speak clearly what you would have for each and every one of us today, God?